The Pikmin series is unique, original, highly addictive, but sadly one of Nintendo's most underappreciated franchises, and I really don't understand why, as there's nothing else out there quite like it. So here we're going to go through and display why the series is so good, excluding Hey Pikmin, as it works a little bit differently, and deliver those top 10 moments from the Pikmin trilogy. And just a heads up, there are major spoilers ahead. We begin this chart with a joint entry from all three titles in which we meet and discover the different types of coloured Pikmin for the first time, as it was exciting to explore their world and come across new sets of Pikmin and uncover the differences with each. Being able to progress through previously inaccessible areas with the right Pikmin type was awesome strategic gameplay and always created a sense of mystery, not knowing what was to come and what would be next. So to discover the Pikmin knowing the advantages that it would now bring was delivered well, as it really created a magical moment every time, at number 10. Our next entry is the first major boss encounter of Pikmin III found in the Garden of Hope. It is the Armoredmoordad. Pikmin 3 really threw you in the deep end quite early on against this giant centipede, and he proved to be a force to be reckoned with, really emphasising how expendable your Pikmin could be. Working out its attack patterns and how to exploit a weakness with the rock Pikmin whilst under a time restraint was strategic genius. It was a boss battle from the Pikmin series we'd never forget, and showed us that the third entry was no pushover, providing a great overall fun experience, at number 9. Our next entry is the ultimate of challenges that Pikmin 2 had to offer, found in the Wistful Wild, is the Hole of Heroes. A higher difficulty level and the longest dungeon, taking on a variety of enemies and repeat bosses with one set of Pikmin throughout, really put your skills and everything you'd learned up to this point to the test. This was the Gauntlet of Gauntlets from the Pikmin series, testing the patience of any player, as you had to be careful, clever, and think about every move if you wanted to succeed, creating an overall exceptional challenge, at number 8. For our next entry, we look at a foe that appears in both Pikmin 1 and 2, but he makes much more of an impact and is far more difficult in Pikmin 1. In the Forest Navel, to encounter beady Longlegs and take him on for the first time is no easy feat. Ideally requiring yellow Pikmin for the task, you're guaranteed to lose many, but to topple the giant provided a great sense of satisfaction and relief to overcome such a challenge. Overall provided a foe to remember, and was that good decided to stick around and evolve throughout the series, at number 7. The next entry on this list is the 5th boss from Pikmin 3, a tripedal creature found in the Garden of Hope, known simply as the Quaggled Myoclops. This enemy is huge in size, extremely powerful, and if you're not careful throughout this entire encounter, it would literally devour every Pikmin you have with ease. You have to really think about this battle, as revealing its weakness is just the beginning, and it encourages you to separate into groups if you're going to have any chance of coming out on top. This tripedal giant will be remembered for really pushing strategic gameplay in Pikmin 3, not to mention its epic scale and the overall challenge that it would present as a fine addition to the third entry in the series, at number 6. In Pikmin 2, after finally recovering enough earthly items to repay the debt, Olimar leaves the planet but forgets Louie, so the President accompanies Olimar returning to Earth to find and rescue Louie, and it's right at the end of the adventure where they reunite but have to deal with a most unwelcome guest. The Titaned Weevil is the final and toughest boss that Pikmin 2 has to offer. It has an arsenal of weapons that change constantly, so you have to attack accordingly and time the attacks correctly, or it's game over before you know it. The challenge that the Titan would present, along with the creepy music played throughout and the approach needed to defeat him, put everything you've learnt to the test, along with the excellent cinematic send-off, was a fantastic way to end Pikmin 2, at number 5. Our next entry is the final stage and challenge presented in Pikmin 1, the final trial. Here we are tasked with crossing the lake, putting the player's knowledge of the 3 different Pikmin type skills to overcome specific obstacles. This is especially difficult for first time players, even if it is enemy free, but upon completion, Emperor Bulblax awaits. The Emperor is the final boss in Pikmin 1, and although he appears in Pikmin 2, he is much more of a threat here. Rushing in won't get you anywhere, so it requires skill, strategy, and smart tactics to overcome the giant. This was an all-round fitting end to Pikmin 1, really combining everything into one final trial, having to take on the diabolical Emperor Bulblax, and if the secret safe was the final ship part you required, then that was really the icing on the cake, at number 4. Our next entry is the final challenge of Pikmin 3 and what I believe to be the ultimate test that the Pikmin series has to offer, and that's to save Olimar from the Plasm Wraith. Having to navigate 3 party members at once through the formidable oak whilst escaping the Plasm Wraith and keeping Olimar safe all at the same time takes great patience and skill. There are multiple routes to take which are full of obstacles and enemies, whilst under a constant time restraint. In all presents a challenge like no other that will really test your memory. The final battle with the Plasm Wraith himself is extremely difficult, and as with all final bosses in the Pikmin games, requires great knowledge and utilisation of every Pikmin type you have, though here things are really taken to the next level, as everything is thrown at you and then some. Overall, the Plasm Wraith encounter was fantastic to escape from and battle, and Pikmin 3 was able to deliver this exceptionally, providing a phenomenal, challenging and entertaining experience we'll never forget, at number 3. In the perplexing pool of the submerged castle in Pikmin 2 reveals our penultimate entry, of which is a personal favourite of mine, the Water Wraith. Through all the enemies and boss encounters in the Pikmin series, we are technically the hunters, fighting our way through to reach the end goal, but the Water Wraith is unique, changing that dynamic entirely, as he is the hunter and we become the hunted. This boss would annihilate Pikmin with ease, and you could do nothing about it. Your only option would be to run, hide and hope for the best whilst attempting to progress through the sub-levels, and trust me, for those first time players, you would lose a lot of Pikmin. We would eventually learn his weakness to the purple Pikmin at the end, but whenever his music would play, it created an extremely unique and almost scary dynamic in Pikmin 2 and produced an overall sense of dread, fear and a real kind of horror-like element to the Pikmin series, which was very much welcome and stood out in a major way, easily earning number 2. Our number 1 entry is a feeling, an experience, a moment that only Pikmin can create. It's a decision that can only be made by the player, whether that's down to careful planning, a gamble or sheer luck, and it's what I like to call the last second rush. Through all 3 Pikmin games, sub-levels not included, you're collecting fruit, items and ship parts to return home, and this is all under a time restraint of roughly 15 real-life minutes from beginning to the end of the day. No matter the task at hand, trying to collect as many items as possible and get them back before the timer runs out, especially if it's down to those last few seconds, delivers such a rush. I've been a gamer for over 25 years and I've never come across another game experience quite like it. It proves and shows you why Nintendo are so good at what they do and one of the best in the business. To be able to deliver a feeling from a game and create a moment that's so satisfying to the player is such a rare and magical experience to any gamer, and defines the Pikmin series as a unique adventure all on its own. So for that exciting feeling and phenomenal rush that we experience in those last crucial seconds to get everything in on time that only Pikmin can create, makes the last second rush our number one spot and our best moment from the Pikmin trilogy. So that brings us to the end of our countdown. In my opinion, the Pikmin series is almost a genre of its own, as there's nothing else out there really quite like it, and I honestly believe it deserves all the praise that it's given, as it's truly a unique and addictive series, and I'm counting down the days for Pikmin 4. But if you're still with me and enjoyed the video, then thank you very much for watching, and if you can, then please remember to like, share and subscribe, as it's greatly appreciated, and please stick with me as I'll be bringing a new video to you soon. Take care now, Gavinchi out.